So I'd like to welcome out to the stage the director, Malcolm Lee. Malcolm D. Lee. And Nate Cohen, please. We have a tradition, Malcolm. This is your first time at Ebertfest. We give a golden thumb to our filmmakers.
That is heavy, wow.
Very heavy. It's made by the same company that makes the Academy Awards.
This is very special. I hope I can get through security on the plane, but this is beautiful. Thank you so much.
And we can actually mail it to you as well if it's too hard to take on.
No, I can take it. I got it.
Oh, okay.
I got it. Okay. Well, you gonna give it back?
I'll give it back.
Okay. All right. Be careful. It's heavy. Thank you very much.
And why don't you sit here?
In the middle?
Yeah.
All right.
I always don't know what's the middle of a four-chair. And then Neil Minow and Carla Renata, please come join us. I want you two to sit right next to him.
Flank me.
Thank you.
And Neil's moderating.
Okay. So, Malcolm, I wanted to just congratulate you. One of the things that Chaz didn't say in her wonderful introduction of you earlier is that you just re-upped your deal with Universal, right?
Yeah, no, we, Universal Pictures and Universal Television. Actually, I mean, it happened about a year ago, but, you know, there was this little thing called a Writers Guild and SAG strike that kind of delayed things, so, you know, but we're back on track now.
Yeah, so I just wanted to congratulate you on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And you seem to have a very long relationship with them because this was with Universal and it was your first time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Universal has done, I would say, the bulk of my movies, and it's a place, I know, you know, a lot of the people that are there were there at the beginning of my career, and it's really my home studio, and so they've kind of, well, not kind of, they've definitely supported my career in a good way, in a robust way, and we've had a good working relationship, and I've made him a couple of bucks.
I think you made a couple of million or so, right?
a couple of bucks with them.
Let's talk a little bit about the casting.
Okay.
Because Nell and I were backstage and we were just talking about how everybody looks like a baby and they're all big stars now.
No, they look so young and they sound so young. You know, I was like, man, is the sound right there? Like that's how they really sounded. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's really pretty extraordinary. You know, where they were and where they've come, and they were all, you know, kind of like perfectly cast. I mean, I had people in mind when I wrote it, and you know, on people that almost got cast in the casting process too, and I was just like, yeah, but they wouldn't have been this cast, and you know, they're all, you know, not just very attractive people, but they're all very accomplished actors. And so we were pretty fortunate at the time, because I think, you know, at the time, there wasn't a lot of roles out there for African American actors where they can just be people and not be, you know, the black this or the black girlfriend or the black friend or the hood or whatever. And there was 8, you know, pretty good parts, you know, where they got to play human beings. And so the acting community was very ready for it. And that's what I was really after was, you know, because I wasn't seeing you know, myself represented on screen or the people that I went to school with. And I just felt like most portrayals of educated African Americans were very archetypal and very stereotypical, where, you know, they had somehow forgotten their cultural specificity and, you know, just said, oh, we're just you know, beyond assimilating, like they had sold out. and had forgotten and checked their ethnicity at the door. And I was like, well, that wasn't my experience, and that wasn't people I knew. So let's portray some real people. And fortunately, the actors that read the script were and we had a lot of people to come out to meet on the movie. So it's it's very special.
Like who?
Let's see. I mean, God, Regina King was one of the people. Tracy Ellis Ross. For example, Michael Jai White was another. Steve Harris, who was very popular with the Practice at the time, the television show The Practice. And when I was writing it, I had Will Smith and Jada Pinkett in mind when I was doing it, because I had read an article that Will was saying that there was such a lack of quality black roles in scripts out there for him that he's like, I can't even find a movie to do with my wife. So I was like, well, I'm gonna write this for Will and Jada, and they never saw it, but it's fine.
That's all right. We saw it. That's all that matters.
Yeah, right. It's all that matters. We got the right cast in it, so
We
it's great.
saw it. And I just want to tell you that, on television they had Friends. My Friends had The Best Man.
Oh, wow.
The Best Man was everything for us, and especially for me, because every time I watch it and I see Uncle Skeeter come on the screen, it just makes me laugh out loud, because my daddy's nickname is Skeeter.
Is that right?
Yeah, straight up.
Wow.
So it just makes me laugh.
Well, that is I can't I'm bad. I can't remember the actor's name, but he was actually still a teacher at the Performing Arts School in New York. Oh, wow. Yeah, and he's in Fame. If you go back and watch that movie, The Fame, he's in that. They cast him from being at the school. Yeah.
This was really a very assured directorial debut. It does not play like a first movie. Tell us what you were doing before and how this came about.
Thank you for saying that, but I was looking at it tonight, I was like, man, did you please pull the camera back? It's so many close-ups and so many 50-50s, and I was like, man, loosen up a little bit. Well, I had gone to film school. I got an opportunity also to witness my cousins, Spike Lee. For those of you who don't know, Spike Lee and I are related. He also produced The First Best Man.
And Spike Lee was actually on the stage with us at some point at Ebertfest, too.
I'm sure he was. And so, I got to see early on his rise and didn't really understand it at the time. But I also, his influence on me, I got to work with him and kind of follow in the footsteps of just really learning the craft of filmmaking. And, made my short movies. But even prior to that, as a little kid, I played with action figures, and I liked to act, and I like to write and perform and do improvisation. And so being in the fine and performing arts and enjoying the fine and performing arts was something that was already in me. I was very comfortable working with actors. And camera was a very different thing, as you see. Loosen the camera up, Malcolm. But I knew what I wanted. And Spike always encouraged me to write scripts, and I also got a fellowship in screenwriting. First of all, when I was an undergrad at Georgetown, I was an English major, and because there was no film program there and a fine arts minor, I got a screenwriting fellowship at Disney Studios when I left. Did not know how to write, but learned over time. Just keep chipping away at it, and again having the kind of fine arts background and my performing arts background, it's just a fit for me, And the good thing was, I got with people, crew members I'm talking about, your director of photography, production designer, editor, who'd been there before and had experience, and it was great that I let them do their job, and I could learn something from them. You learn plenty from experiencing and working with your classmates in film school, but by doing, but you also learn from people who kind of know the ropes, and you have your own ideas and things, but they help support your vision, and sometimes they can help you articulate your vision in a way that I couldn't articulate before. I had never worked with a production designer before I worked on Best Man, and I remember Kalina Ivanov, who was our production designer, was this Russian woman, and I'd met with a number of production designers before, and she came in and she says, "This is your movie." And I was like, wow. And he said all these great images that I was like, yes, this is my movie. So it was again, and a lot of my thoughts and the way I went about casting and shooting things was not necessarily what my cousin would have done, because we're different, and we had some different opinions about how things were going to go. But he was like, it's your vision, it's your film, do your thing. So I had that good support too.
Something that you did with this film, I think, is very difficult for even very experienced directors, which is that you had both comedy and drama and romance and all in the same film. How did you talk to the actors about the tone that you wanted to create?
It's funny, thank you for saying that. I never, it's funny because I didn't, sometimes they've characterized The Best Man in a number of different ways, including a comedy, a dramedy, a romantic comedy. I even heard somebody call it a bromance. And my thing was, I always thought of this movie as a drama with comedic parts. And so I never directed it like a, quote, comedy. I remember even, the studio and Sam Kidd, who was one of the producers on it, saying, this is a comedy, you have to make sure that, I was like, it's not a comedy, it's not at all. Like, we're playing it very real, and I think at the time, I was just saying real, and because this is just a life thing. There's gonna be humor, and there's gonna be comedy, and there's gonna be romance, and all the things that, exist in a movie like this, where friends are reuniting and unrequited love, and made sure that things were honest, and I wanted it to be grounded. And so I just talked about the fullness of each character, and I think I was really just trying to make sure that their humanity was on display more than anything, because black characters or black actors don't really get a chance, or did not get an opportunity to play their humanity in that way. And I don't think I thought of it in those terms, but I certainly talked about, okay, when we got to rehearsals, it was like, okay, I remember the rehearsal between Harold Perrineau and Melissa DeSosa, who play Murch and Shelby, and like we would do improv, and I always knew that these two were gonna be funny, particularly Shelby, but we started doing improv with the two of them, and like their relationship was so toxic, when they would do these improvs, I was like, this is terrible. Don't ever like, we're never gonna bring this to the fore, when we do this on screen, because you guys are a terrible couple together. But those are the acting exercises that we would do, because again, I came from an acting background, so I would do these things. I remember when I was, the scene with the guys doing the card table, we made sure we rehearsed that many times. It was one of my favorite things that I had written, and I thought would really be good and just be like a really, telling the crux of the movie, because I really wanted to tell a story about 4 black men who were educated and friends and very different. And so I wanted to make sure we beat up that scene and made sure we, got it down past it, so that the card playing was secondhand, and that the arc of the scene would play the way that it did. So we made sure we did that. And then there were other things where I said, okay, I had a rehearsal, I had them do exercises, like I had Harper, Taye Diggs and Monica Calhoun, who played Mia and Harper. I said, okay, I want you to write in a journal what happened that night and how you felt about it. And then I had, one time, Taye and Monica rehearse, and the scene that the night that they had, their encounter, and I said, okay, you rehearse, and it was a dimly lit room, and I said, ignore anything or any sound that comes out, because I had Morris step into the room and watch. And I said, I want you to think about that when we rehearse with Taylor. Like the next, literally, okay, thank you, Monica, great rehearsal. And like Morris was seething. He threw a book at Taylor, nearly hit him in the head. And so I said, bring that to the set. So there was just a lot of, rehearsal and things like that. And I wanted to have the humor. I just wanted everything to be grounded more than anything.
I just have to say, I recognize that you gave yourself a Hitchcock moment in the jazz club.
Yeah. My wife and I were talking about that. She was like, why are you in there? I'm like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I've been thinking about this for years, actually. Like, the one cameo, just when I just shook hands with Terrence Howard, I should have just left it at that and not done that close-up. I should have just snapped it. I remember even when we were looking at it with Spike, the final sound check, he was like, why is that shot there? Why you? I said, no, I needed to bridge the two scenes with that shot. And he was like, you can just cut that out. I was just like, no. I'm going to be in my movie. I have put myself into further movies, but I've always cut myself out.
I was going to ask, did you have any of those Hitchcock moments in any of your movies after that?
I put myself in, but then I always took myself out. Like either because the scene didn't make sense, mostly because the scene didn't make sense, and then I did it most recently in The Best Man Final Chapters, only because I didn't want a day playing extra. We didn't want to pay for a day player, number one. And number two, I didn't want an extra, doing extra stuff. Sometimes an extra can take you out of a scene. They're like, because there was a scene with, Robin had to surprise Harper, hey, I'm moving to Ghana. And, an extra could have been like, and I was like, let me just not take a chance. Just put me in a suit. I'll play it and I'll downplay it. So yeah, I don't do that anymore.
Neil mentioned the casting, which is incredible for this movie. They all are big stars now. Taye Diggs, Neil Long, Terrence Howard, Harold Perrineau, on and on. But back then, when you were first directing them, how did you feel as a first-time director, and what were their careers like at that time, if you know the question I'm asking you?
Yeah, no, Tay was like the hot guy because he had just come off of, Rent and I Still Got a Groove Back. And so Nia was like one of those actors that was really she was already a star as far as black audiences were concerned with Boys in the Hood and Love Jones and other films of that nature. I'm just like, well, she's a name and she's going to be very important for this. Morris, I wasn't sure, but I wasn't sure how good of an actor he was. I was always a fan of Terrence Howard since I saw him in Dead Presidents. And Harold Perrineau was always a fan of Romeo and Juliet. There was a movie he did, I think called Smoke, or with Harvey Keitel and Forrest Whitaker. And I always loved him. And so, and Sanaa Lathan was somebody I did not know, and when she auditioned, I was like, that's Robin, that's her. So, again, working with actors was not foreign to me. I spoke their language, and more than that, I think we all were kind of, I was certainly at the infancy of my career. A lot of them were, teetering on, the right role was going to put them, in the stratosphere, or at least put them on the map. And we all had the same kind of attitude and love and, desire to make something special. I think they all felt that they had a good time. They all had, it was one of those sets that they never left set. They never went to their trailers. They went to, when they had lunch, they all had, sat down together and laughed and joked and just had they were like a family. And so, we all has felt the same mission. And for me, the mission was, and has always been in my career, is like to normalize black life in America and to, you know, make the so-called African American film mainstream. You know, these are very universal themes and universal stories that I've either written or, you know, wanted to direct, whether it's coming of age or family or, you know, or a wedding. You know, these are all relatable things that Americans and human beings can all connect with. And if I can go see, you know, Four Weddings and a Funeral and Muriel's wedding and, you know, my best friend's wedding and enjoy them, then everyone should be able to enjoy The Best Man. So that was my mindset going into it, and I felt very good about what we were doing.
You'll see that we're going to continue exactly that theme tomorrow when we talk about Albany Road, because the director says the exact same thing. So I want to ask you, which was the bigger challenge to choreograph, the sex scenes or the fight scene?
Interesting, huh? Well, you know, I'm still not comfortable, you know, directing sex scenes. Like, they're just, it's so like, all right, move there, kiss there, okay, shut up, oh, they're not doing exactly what I want them to do, but you can't really like go in and be like, hey, do this. It's just like, it's weird. With a fight scene, you choreograph it beforehand, you see what they're doing, like, oh, this is easy. So as long as the actors are, you know, comfortable, you know, it's fine. So I would say that the intimate scenes are a little bit more difficult. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, I've always wanted to ask you this about Lance's character. You know, I never picked it up until tonight, but the scene where Harper walks past the box and he picks up the photograph and Lance is taking a knee, that means so much more now than it meant at the time. And so I just wanted to find out, why did you decide to steep Lance's character in Christianity and make him a football player? He could have been a basketball player, he could have been a soccer player, a baseball player, but why football and why in Christianity?
Well, number one, I knew that Lance was going to have a temper and, you know, eventually find out what happened and beat Harper up. People aren't scared of soccer players. You know, they're not really scared of basketball players unless they're like, you know, 6'8" and like, you know, 300 pounds. So football players, you know, they're out there to like, you know, smash each other up. So I was like, okay, football player. Thing is with Lance and like the hyper masculine, I think, well, football's a hyper masculine sport, right? And I think like I've known a lot of, you know, religious hyper masculine people who are like have that dichotomy of, you know, being deeply religious but not being able to always, you know, adhere to the tenets of Christianity and religion. So I wanted to explore that in his character. Same thing when it comes to like, you know, oh, I want a woman who's pure and, you know, as the driven snow and virtuous and yada, yada, yada. She has to be a virgin and no one can sleep with her but me. And present him with that dilemma, like, okay, like, are you gonna do you have enough faith in God to say, like, this is your path and you're going to continue, or are you gonna be, you know, hypocritical, blasphemous, whatever? And so I wanted to have that, because I you know, I've known people like that, and I think it's interesting, and I always felt like with religion and black people in movies, it's always been a little bit heightened to me, and not always grounded. Like, you know, I think about like the Blues Brothers, right? And like there's that scene in there where people are leaping up in the air and like whatnot and singing and da da da. And I'm like, is it really like that everywhere? No, it's not. People take their religion very seriously. And so, you know, I think, yes, there's joy and there's, you know, praising God and singing and whatnot, but there's also just like a quiet prayer, you know, and a struggle that people have with, you know, trying to be with their moral compass. And I wanted to display that with black characters, because again, I feel like it's always been, we're always like a little bit pushed, when it comes to certain things that, oh, that's how black people are at church, and like, this is just a brother who's like, got his cross and has his convictions and, but he's also has a temper. So that was the reasoning behind it.
I appreciated that. And I wanted to ask one other thing, too, about the writing. You write so well for women.
Thank you. Thank you.
The way that the female characters spoke rung really, really true. Who is it in your life that inspired you, that got you to write for them that way?
I've always had a lot of great female friends. My best friend being my wife. She's always like someone.
Camille, who's here today. Hi,
there
Camille.
she goes with me on this trip. But yeah, I've always had, female voices, to hear and listen to and whatnot. And my wife's a great sounding board when it comes to what women think and how they behave and how they might react in a situation. And so, I've been very fortunate to have them around me and, listen. Yeah, eavesdrop too. I don't eavesdrop.
Who of the cast and crew from this film did you continue to work with in some of your other films?
Let's see. Well, obviously, I've made a sequel and an 8-part series with this cast. My music editor and my sound designer were the same for the first 2 movies. Different director of photography, different. Oh yes, thank you. My costume designer. Costume designer has been throughout almost all my movies. Danielle Hollowell. Some continuity along the way, and it's great when people kind of they understand what you want and what you're after, and so yeah, I've been fortunate to work with many of the same people. I like doing it because there's just a shorthand that you have with people, and it's but also like it's good to work with new people too, and it's funny when I was doing Best Man Holiday, my director of photography, Greg Gardner, who had done Welcome Home Roscoe Jenkins with me, and then I think Best Man Holiday was his second movie, and like he just really wanted it because he really loved the characters and what we could do with it, and we shot that in anamorphic and finally got wide shots, that were needed very much. I'm like, golly, I was looking at that movie tonight. I'm like, man, did you ever pull the camera? They couldn't even see what the people are doing with their hands below camera. I'm like, what do you? Man, somebody should have told me something. But it is what it is.
When you wrote and directed the film, did you have in your mind some thought about what would happen to those characters in some future day?
When I first wrote it, absolutely not. I wanted this movie to be a standalone movie, and I wanted it to be a classic or regarded as a classic. I think for the audience that it was aimed at and intended for, they feel that. And so, the talk of a sequel came immediately. When the studio started smelling money and started, it was starting to catch fire. I mean, it was #1 at the box office, at a robust $9 million back in 1999. But we beat Bringing Out the Dead and Fight Club and some other things too. It was kind of crazy. A great debut in that regard. And so yeah, there was a lot of talk of doing it, but I was not interested in doing a sequel. I said, I want to tell other stories. I don't want to become a one-trick pony. I don't want people to say, oh, that's all you can really do. Filmmakers like Ang Lee and Steven Soderbergh, at the time, and even now, you never know what they're going to come with things. You can't guess what they're going to, we're going to make. I wanted to have that kind of career. And I said at the time, I said, well, maybe I'll revisit these characters in like 10 years after they've had a chance to live some life, and I've had a chance to live some life. And, you know, when it came around in 2013, it was time to do it and revisit it, and I've been thinking about it and incubating on the idea for a very long time when I finally committed pen to paper.
We'd like to open it up to the audience for some questions.
Sure.
We have, are the microphones
Oh, there they
out there?
Don't be shy.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I've got one.
They have to locate them. And
Got one right here.
okay, right here.
Yeah, so the movie felt so rich, like it felt like it was a universe and already established. It feels like the characters have rich lives. And I know you mentioned a little bit of like improv behind the scenes, so I was curious, was there anything that you like shot? How much extra footage was there? Was there anything that you took? It feels like so naturalistic, the film, like you really get a picture into their lives, but I'm curious, was there anything that didn't make it into the movie that just remained on the cutting room floor?
There's a lot that didn't make it to the movie, and you know, thank you for your question. I think it's funny because, and I was talking about this during it with some friends, you know, about what you learn on a first movie is that you write a script and you think you need every word that's on that page. You think you need every scene that's in there, and what happens is your actors bring so much to it, and they can achieve what you want with a look, a glance, an exchange, you know, a word that's already been said, like in scene 6, that like you don't need scene 26 and 35 and, you know, 44, because you've already communicated that. So, yeah, and the thing that I learned also was, because I was in my filmmaker bag, again, these are some of the wide shots that probably did get shot but didn't get made. I did a lot of oneers. You know, I was in my Woody Allen bag trying to, like, you know, okay, we're gonna like start here with Harper, and we're gonna track over with him to Quentin, and they're gonna talk, and then Quentin's gonna leave, and Harper's gonna stay, and then he's gonna move over, and it's gonna. So, you know, you do these oneers. They're the first thing to go because you have no place to cut to. And so there's a lot of scenes, and funny, we never put deleted scenes on the DVD, and we should have. I've asked a couple times, I'm kind of like, oh my God, this stuff is all in film, it has to be digitized and then color corrected. I'm just like, come on, like, we can do it. So I don't know. Maybe if I can find an old tape, I might put them on, you know, Instagram or something. But yes, there were you know, a few things. But you learn a lot, you know, in what you think you need and what you like. For instance, there was a scene where when Robin drops Harper off at the airport, and they're talking, and she's like, "I'm not gonna play the fool," and everyone plays the fool, and it's like, you know, a little heavy-handed, but it's like, it was good, right? It was a good scene, and more wide shots, but you know, it doesn't. You don't need it. You think you need it, but then you realize that you don't. But what's important is your actors, having gone through the scene that you shot that will end up on the cutting room floor, will actually have needed to do that scene so they can translate something that, you know, was there. So it's like, you know, it's all part of the process.
Microphone,
Question from the balcony.
is it center?
It is.
Okay.
Hi. So the movie stays mostly grounded in realistic imagery, but one moment that really stuck out to me was Lance on the toilet bathed in hellish red light. Could you speak to what inspired you to make that break? Was it planned from the beginning, or was it something that hit you along the way?
That's so funny. Thank you for that question. Because, and again, this is when you as a filmmaker, you know, can be very stubborn, which I was, or be open to, you know, ideas. And I remember I wanted it to happen. I wanted to do that, right? And again, trying to be a, quote, filmmaker, trying to do something different, special, something that stands out. I wanted that red, rage to be there for Lance. And I remember Sam Kidd saying, you really should shoot it 2 ways. You should. I was just like, I'm not gonna do it both ways. And he was like, you should really. I said, all right, fine. So we shot it, with no red light. And I was like, we're gonna test it with the red light. And it didn't. And audience was like, ooh. So I was like, see, Sam, I was right. But he was right to say, let's cover it both ways just in case it doesn't work. Because, people, sometimes it doesn't work. I'll give you another example, not an example, but it's funny how, and this is not anything to do with your question, but I want to mention it anyway. My wife always teases me about this moment when Harper yells out to Robin, I need you, right? In the airport, right? I remember when we made the movie and we tested that scene, there'd be a lot of, when that happened, there'd be a lot of black men in particular be like, oh, please, he's such a bitch, he's such a punk, blah, 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 right? And over time, that has become less and less the case because, a man and a black man showing his vulnerability is not so foreign anymore as it was in 1999. So I think that's good progress, and that's part of the mission for me to, okay, let's normalize certain things and just say acceptance. It's like he can be vulnerable because he was in a spot. He needed some help at that moment. And he needed some help specifically from her. So anyway, there's these things that you learn, because there was if people really didn't like it, there was no other place to go. I was like, well, we're gonna have to just live with that one.
I've got another question for you. Any possibility of a sequel to Undercover Brother? I love that movie so much.
Yeah, you know what? There was a sequel to Undercover Brother. I didn't direct it, and it wasn't Eddie Griffin. It was like Michael
Then it
Jai
doesn't
White.
count.
No,
Doesn't-
I
I know which
agree.
one you're
I
talking
agree.
about, yeah.
I tell you what, I've been bugging John Ridley to do a Undercover Brother television show, like Get Smart. I would like to see that. In fact, I pitched it to him in when Obama was in office, and I was like, they can just be like, hey, we did it. It's over. Racism done. We can retire. And then, of course, things come back around and like, oh, we're back. So, but it's maybe we'll see.
I love the Friends quiz in that.
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Yes, Friends quiz.
All right.
Microphone,
Left center.
okay?
Hey, this is more for Mr. Lee. Did you do roll bounce?
I did do roll bounce.
Okay, I used to work at the skating rink that you filmed that at in high
Oh,
school.
really?
Yeah, we have a little shrine for you and everything.
Oh, I'm gonna have to come back. Oh yeah, because that's it's not far from here. A couple of hours. Yeah, that was a fun movie. Again, another one of those movies that very American, very what is more American than Rite of Passage or a coming of age movie, and that was a lot of fun, but tough. 15-year-old teenage boys in the summertime, very hard to focus.
We've been doing a column at RogerEbert.com called Future of the Movies, and we decided to do it, I think maybe is it the first week of every month now? And we have different writers write it. What do you see something different in going forward in movies, or what is something that you're looking forward to doing now that you have the deal that you have?
I think right now the movie industry is still trying to right itself. After the pandemic, certainly after the huge boon of streaming movies, and it's all starting to settle down a little bit now. Obviously, the writer's strike and the actor strike are making things settle down a bit as well. I'm hoping that people still want to come to the movies and see, have to share the communal experience of seeing a movie, together. This is why I, wanted to, make movies, is to see it on the big screen and ultimately impact culture You know, I don't think a streaming movie does that, even though it gets seen all over the world. People don't communicate about it in the same way when they go to a theater experience and share it, and like they talk about it. And yes, you know, people are talking about it on Twitter and this, that, but it's also just that energy, and articles and think pieces get written about it, you know, in ways that like I haven't seen that happen with the streaming thing. So I'm hoping that, you know, people are still coming back to the movies, and I think they are, but it's only certain things, and the studios are still trying to figure out what is deemed theatrical and what isn't. So I hope that there's still room for theatrical releases, and that people will still want to come to the movies, not just for, you know, Planet of the Apes or horror movies, but they want to go see, you know, romantic comedies or a big comedy. And, you know, if it's the right thing, I think people will show up.
Which
Okay,
brings me
next
to the question, excuse me, that just made me think about, I started going to the Cannes Film Festival maybe about 30 years ago. And I remember the prevailing wisdom at that time was that black movies didn't export as well. What have you seen over the last 25 or 30 years? What change have you seen with that?
I think, you know, Will Smith was like a great example of, you know, you have to actually go over there and introduce yourself to the press and to the people. And now he's like he took the Tom Cruise route and said, okay, I'm gonna go to all these places in India and China and England and show my face and shake hands and do talk shows. And then people will be like, oh yeah, you know, because other parts of black culture have black American culture, have translated and have traveled. So, you know, I think like it's just a matter of like, oh, it hasn't happened, so like someone has to like be the pioneer and make it happen. And that's certainly, you know, changing. And I think has changed, but it's still a fight no matter what. Even if it's not just African Americans, you know, sometimes they feel like, well, this is a sports movie that I wanted to do one time and didn't have, you know, it wasn't like any black leads that were gonna be the, you know, the selling the movie. It was like, well, this is a domestic play because it's basketball. And I'm like, but basketball's international. And they're like, not really. So like, there's always things you have to like contend with, no matter what the genre is or who's in it, who's in front of the camera.
Microphone.
Yes. To your right, back of the house.
I have grown up on The Best Man, all of the things. Is there room for more after you've done the series?
Well, it was called Final Chapters. And that means something. So I will just say the likelihood is it's no more stories to be told. But maybe.
The Best Man, the next generation.
Could happen. The best man, the geriatric generation, the best man, nursing home.
Is there a genre that you have not done yet that you would like to do? Would you like to do a heist film or a musical? Or,
Yes.
All right.
Yes. In fact, I am developing a couple of musicals. Thank you. Yes. I am developing a heist movie. And I might be hopping on a thriller, suspense thriller too. So yeah, it's funny. I didn't like aim or like intend to like do comedy. It just so happens that I learned a lot, and I was like, oh, I have a you know, I don't know if I have a knack for it, but I just feel like okay, like. I like to laugh. I always surround myself with funny people. I like to make people laugh. I like to laugh myself. So it just so happened that, you know, I was able to do some comedies, but I don't want to get stuck there. I mean, you know, there was a movie I was trying to do about the 1968 Olympics that I really wanted to make, you know, a couple of years ago. But it, you know, again, foreign money, like, is it, you know, period, black, sports, all kinds of things that, you know, go against a budget that was, you know, north of $30 million. And I was like, but, you know, this is an important story to tell, and I really wanted to do it. And it was very dramatic, and I had a vision for it, but, it didn't come to fruition. But yes, I want to do all those things and expand what I can do.
This is sort of a philosophical question. I think I asked, you were generous and gracious enough to participate in some things that we had online during the pandemic. And I think I may have asked you this question then, but I think I asked other people, but not you. What makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning, and what gives you hope for the world?
Oh, gosh. Hope for the world. I think we're in just a very dangerous time and place right now, and so I'm a little bit, concerned, but I'm also feeling like, I have my part to play, in it, and I want to be able to tell stories that are, about human beings and about, the experience and making sure that they have a consciousness about them. And I want to leave it for generations of not just black people but everybody to know that I'm trying to represent for us and that I want again to humanity to be displayed and celebrated.
Thank you. And I didn't mean to step on the audience's last question. Was there someone who had a last question?
One
in
last
the audience?
question from the balcony in the center.
Okay, balcony center.
Balcony center rules.
It does.
So I'd like to hear you talk about the Terrence Howard character, because it seems like you had an idea for him beyond simply being a character in the movie.
Quentin. Quentin is one of my favorites. I've known plenty of Quentins. There are plenty of people that are in my life who said, yo, that was me, right? I was like, not really. Quentin's complicated. He grew up with wealth. He lost his mother at a very young age. He's a little bit damaged, emotionally, has never had kind of love therapy, so to speak, because he had to kind of grow up quick, and his dad wasn't like a nurturer. And we explore that, you see it a little bit in the card game here, and a little bit when he's talking about to Harper the first time. And, it's masked in a lot of masculine bravado. And then in Best Man Holiday, we get a little insight into, that his mom had died at an early age. And then, in the series, he's very vulnerable. And we take him to a place where, we're like, oh, he would never be, like the Quentin that you saw in Best Man would never be the Quentin that you saw in Best Man Final Chapters, but it made sense. So yeah, I wanted, and by the way, I try to do that with all the characters, give them some complexity to, to pull through. And, fortunately people really relate and, feel a kinship, towards him. So it's, and Terrence is a brilliant actor. I mean, brilliant. And he brings a lot of subtext to the character, and he loves to quote play, and he thinks I pit people against each other. And I'm like, I don't do that, But he's like, everybody wants to win, man. I got to win this scene. I'm like, okay, just do your best. I mean, Morris really kind of killed it that last take, but do what you can, And he just brings it, So.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, Nell, and thank you, Carla Renata.